All right, we're doing System Concepts, Article 14, Inversion. The system converses with us through different mediums indirectly. Part of our work is to learn how to decipher the concepts relayed to us. One of the main filters to apply the way we interpret the world around us is inversion. This means that we identify the phase, humanity, spiritual society, group, and individual, that relate the concept to us and invert accordingly. And here's a quote. Thus, if Israel are rewarded and take the law of development that their bad attributes must go through in order to invert them into good ones, they will bring it under their own government. In other words, they will set their minds and hearts to correct all the bad attributes in them and turn them into good ones by themselves. Then I will hasten it, meaning they will be completely freed from the chains of time. And from now on, this end depends on their own will, meaning only by the greatness of the deeds and the mindfulness. Thus they hasten the end. From the article Peace in the World by Bala Sulam. There is a common thought that if only we gave charity to each other, everything would be great, the world would reach peace and everyone would be happy. People call that altruism. However, this is the total opposite of what Kabbalah calls altruism. Altruism is independent on each other, where we empower and strengthen each other. The falsehood of normal charity is that you cause the other person to be dependent on you, instead of enabling the person to stand independent. By empowering each other to be able to handle their everyday life, humanity, we can focus our mind and efforts on attaining spiritual degrees of perception. Here's a quote. Thus, it is evident that his guidance of the reality that he has created is in the form of purposeful guidance, without taking into consideration the order of the phases of development. For they deceive us and prevent us from understanding their purpose, being always opposite to their final shape. It is about such matters that we say there is none so wise as the experienced. Only one who is experienced has the opportunity to examine creation in all its phases of development, all the way through completion, and can calm things down, so as not fear those spoiled images that creation undergoes in the phases of its development, but believe in its fine and pure end. From the article, The Essence of Religion and Its Purpose by Bala Sulam. One of the problems we face on our path is being able to see the development we go through as positive. We see various clashes of people and desires in reality, and our first response is wanting those clashes to stop. However, these tribulations are designed to bring a more powerful outcome of integrated views and desires. These are needed for a more developed society. Peace is not about reducing our power, but rather having a common goal to unite opposite perceptions. Only those with a low desire can love someone without a reason. It is impossible to love someone unconditionally. There is always a reason, either unconsciously or consciously. The only way for love to be unconditional is for the reason to be unconditional, which is the Creator, and the goal of reaching absolute power together. It is the only permanent, eternal reason to have for love. And here's a workshop question. Number 1, what is inversion? Maria.
I think it depends on, well, first there's something to invert, and it comes from a certain phase, and depending on how I'm making a discernment about it, then goes through the inversion. So I'm assuming that whatever, let's say that I have a situation in a phase 2 level, and my discernment on that and how I use it towards the goal is what I would consider right now an inversion.
Mark.
I guess when I first thought of an answer for this, I hadn't considered the different phases. What inversion means to me, just off the top of my head, and is what I'm going to blurt out, is an opposite. In other words, I guess I can come at this from phase two. My will to receive, if I want to bestow, that my will to receive is an inversion. It's the opposite of the will to bestow. Thank you.
Moshe.
Well, to me, inversion is basically you using everything around you toward reaching the goal. So when your mind is filled with doubts, you invert it inwards to create more fuel for you to reach the goal. And in the same sense, if the reality that is expressed in front of my eyes, if I feel empty, if I feel a lack for something, I'm always inverting it into the lack of the goal. I'm basically using everything around me and I'm inverting it inwards to reach the goal.
Peter.
Well, we have our ego that we deal with every day, which is our ego in this awake world as we're functioning. We have our spiritual ego. Our ego that we deal with every day is the will to receive. The version of that is our spiritual ego, which is the will to bestow, which in the spiritual world I would think would be much larger. Our ego in the spiritual world is much larger than our ego in this world. And that's probably because the will to bestow is a much more, it's larger than the will to receive because it comes from the Creator. Thank you.
Robin.
Inversion, I think, is the process of going from wherever we are to dependent, or what is it, independent on each other. It's the process. I mean, whatever stage you're in, you're not going to see it until after you're able to look back on it. But it's going from an uncorrected position to correction. That's what I think.
Shelley.
Everything that we experience in our lives, we bring inwardly and use it to invert everything that we are. It's like instead of being controlled, we are controlling the environment as well. So we do this in the process, which inversion is a process that we do to control these environmental experiences that we have and bring them inside of us to process them inside.
Mary.
Inversion is when we take a desire that's outside of us and we take our will to receive and convert it to, we take a desire of whoever we're relating to, the connection between us. We take their desire and bring it inside us consciously. Because it's already there, and so we bring it inside us consciously and activate it as ours.
Yohanan.
I guess the way I understand it, an inversion would be taking some situation in life and then knowing how to kind of interpret it for advancement. Yeah.
The idea of inversion is that the system, the creator, doesn't talk with us in like a direct manner. It doesn't say, do this and then, oh, the creator told me to do something, therefore I should do it. Rather, what the creator does is he talks with us sometimes direct and sometimes indirect. Sometimes we just need to take what the system says and use it directly. And sometimes we have to actually invert it. So someone will say, for example, don't go to learn Kabbalah. And we invert it to say, oh, I should go and learn Kabbalah. And then they'll say, don't learn Bala Sulam. And then invert to say, oh, go learn Bala Sulam. Don't clean concepts. Oh, I should clean concepts, right? And the idea of the correction is to know how to relate to each of our desires and know which of them to invert and which to keep them as is. The second question is, what is the difference between fake and real altruism? Maria.
I think that sometimes we tend to, like a parent, we don't want our kids to suffer, and we want to be providers and just give them everything, and that could be a form of altruism. Give them everything that they want, that they need, but we form a dependency because they will not be able to go on their own, and I would consider that fake. And true altruism is giving them the tools for them to stand on their own.
Mark.
I don't have an analogy like Maria just stated, but basically the same thing. My view of altruism before was, to hug you and love you and everything's wonderful and everything's beautiful. But now, especially for this reading, my view of altruism is to have you reach a point of independence and power also. You don't owe me anything. You stand on your own and you have your own power. Thank you.
Mary.
To empower someone so they can take care of themselves would be real altruism, and fake is just handing them something to make them dependent on you. So being dependent on you versus independent.
Moshe.
I think the best example is just to look around you. If the creator equals altruism and you see people suffering, there's still a reason for it. There's a reason for it because they're suffering because they need to be pushed into becoming independent on each other. And that's why they're sent that suffering. So suffering in itself can be considered altruism if it's directed towards the goal of being independent on each other. And that's why it's important to make that distinction. It's not about being nice to everybody. That's still okay, but you can be nice to somebody if it's directed towards the goal. So everything has to be directed towards the goal. That's true altruism.
Laura.
Well, adding on to what Moshe said, yes, it's all directed towards the goal. So what might seem like not being nice, and if it is directed towards the goal, then it actually is nice. So true altruism is what true bestowal is the creating of the internal power.
Peter.
I don't think I know. I don't even know what fake altruism is. So I don't even know what the distinction of real altruism is. So I haven't really I don't think I really know what real altruism is, so I don't know the distinction between the both.
Robin.
Well, like most everybody has said, true altruism is in line with the goal, in line with the adhesion of the Creator, in line with the truest goal. And any help that we give each other or anyone to help in that direction is true altruism. Kind words, nice pats on the back, and all these kinds of things is fake. It might release tension from a situation or make you feel better or fill a space where you may want to really help but can't, or just don't want to do it, don't feel like you have the time for it. But true altruism is exactly the opposite, and that's in truly helping in some way for that person to be more aligned to the goal.
Shelley.
Fake altruism is where you're giving charity to others and fulfilling their needs when they actually become dependent on you. And real altruism is where you are encouraging them to become independent and help them empower themselves, such as, with the system concepts of we are all helping each other and it's a win-win situation. It's not that we're becoming dependent, but independent, and we're helping each other become empowering in ourselves so that we can reach the goal.
Yohanan.
I think that it has to do with, trying to think. You have fake altruism and real altruism. So I think the fake would be, I don't know. I don't have the I don't have the detail for it. Oh, sorry.
Caesar writes, fake altruism is when you think you can change the world in your current state of reception. True altruism is when you're not thinking you're advancing through the phases and you change the world inside of you and not outside external. Fake altruism is the quality to bestow. So fake altruism is when you're trying to use the quality of reception to bestow. And true altruism is when you're using the quality of bestowal to bestow. It's like we say when kids are acting like parents, that it's fake. They're playing. It's a game. And when they're actual parents, then we call that they're truly our parents. So the same thing when we're trying to act like the Creator, then that's fake altruism. When we're trying to bestow, we're trying to help others from the perception of the ego. When we only after the barrier, when we actually get the quality of bestowal, then we can actually do true altruism, where we can actually think how to help a person, but through the system perspective. How is it best for the system? We take the goal into true consideration, and that is true altruism. The third question, how can we empower and strengthen each other? Laura.
By cleaning concepts, keeping the goal in the forethought, and helping each other realign to the goal when you're off track. Yeah.
Maria.
and also by providing the tools or a path so that when one is going through states to come, one will know, I remember I should try to do this. So we provide the tools as well to learn how to discern or how to get out of a state and go to the next, or get out of a descent more quickly. So we're providing the tools, but I would also say how you provide the tools. Like sometimes, I can be very mean with a hidden intention of trying to help. But if I could have not been as mean and achieved the same outcome, then to look for the best. Yes, pain may be involved. It's fine. Like sometimes I can see, but sometimes is that I can't just like say, I'm going to just be very severe. I'm again relating to being as a parent. Sometimes I know, this is for your own good. I'm doing this very harshly, but the amount of severity that I use might have not been necessary at that moment, or I might have been too lenient. Anyway, but providing the tools, but also with that best intention for each other to advance most rapidly.
Mark.
I think we can do this best by providing the correct environment where I am respectful of you, and yet I'm authentic with you. I'm honest with you. In other words, if we all have the same, which we do, we have the same goal in mind. If I feel like you're straying from that goal, I don't do this in anger. I don't do this from pettiness, but I try to set you straight. I also, it's mutual. I expect that from you. Thank you.
Mary.
In addition to what everyone else has said, because it's all great, by encouraging others in a way that, I can just let go of my own maybe expectations of how I think it should go, like not try to be smart or know the answer, but just encourage them, maybe provide an article to read or remind them, like other people have said, about kind of where you are and what might help, and then let them do the scrutiny, and also reminding them of why, what brought them here, what the importance of the goal and inside them, what it means to them, and the importance of the path to them, and because I don't think we'd come this far if we weren't pretty serious about it. So, next.
Moshe.
Well, I'll tell you, I think everybody is very unique, and everybody needs different type of loving, I guess you could say, but no pain, no gain. But it's about understanding how each person is, and kind of giving them direction for their type of personality. So you can't hit somebody who's a complete right person with really, really strong, aggressive, tough type of tough love. That's not going to work. You're going to break that person. So that you need more for a Yosef, for a left type of person. So I think it's also important to know how to behave towards other people and give them the necessary guidance to empower them. So I think it's most effective that way, and it's not sort of like this one size fits all.
Peter.
Well, with the society, with the group, we help the friends to clarify their desires and reach their desire, like we do when we get together as a group in system concepts. We are helping each other with our desires, our goal, discernment, our intentions. And this is what we have to do. This is what we do, and we do it whether we do it effortlessly or not. We do it, and we all grow, and we all move, and as a result of that, and help each other move towards the goal. Thank you.
Robin.
I think we do it through coming into a group like this and bringing our intention and really having a strong intention and desiring it and cleaning concepts and genuinely striving for the goal, bringing that great intention that brings the light to us, that brings the creator within each one of us out and creates an atmosphere and environment where we can clean concepts, whatever state we're in.
Shelley.
Yes, in whatever state we're in, and sometimes we just have to sit back and listen and stand outside ourselves and view how and what is being said so that we can absorb that, because that's how we clean our concepts, sometimes by just listening and observing. And it's always nice to hear others talk about, how they've also gone through the same things we go through when we're having our discernments and our fall, I guess you could say, where we are down at the lowest of low, and helping each other out, and as far as getting back up out of that.
Yochanan.
I think part of how we help each other is that when we're in a group, no one's on like the exact same level. So we have these levels like above us, and we have levels, like we can help the people that are getting into our phase or something like this. So we have we're able to like help someone and to be helped. Like we're in a great situation for that kind of sharing.
Caesar writes, by showing that the goal is more important than anything else, there's nothing to worry about it. It's all about to take the right direction and intention. First of all, to empower and strengthen somebody else, you first of all have to feel the need that they need empowering and strengthening. And the second thing is you have to basically find how does it empower and strengthen yourself. That is one of the advantages of spiritual empowerment, is that when you empower somebody else, you're actually empowering yourself. And so the more you make it egoistic, the more you make it that the reason I'm investing in my environment is to get something back from it, to have gain from it, personal gain, personal spiritual gain, personal spiritual correction. The idea is to latch onto that egoistic thought, and then what you can do is you can actually invest correctly and strengthen correctly your environment. Because the problem is, if you're trying to strengthen your environment with fake altruism, that is, you're trying to do it because you're just a nice person, so you want to strengthen your environment, you're not going to be able to do it correctly. You're not going to have the details. That's probably one of the problems with fake altruism, is that it lacks details. Because you're trying to do a nice, airy-fairy good deed, and you're feeling so great with yourself that you forget there's actual details to it, and there's follow-up, and there's consistency. While true altruism, because you're doing it egoistically, that is, you have personal gain, personal spiritual gain, you can actually spend much more time investing correctly in the environment, because you're able to use your details. And they say the devil's in the details, and the ego's in the details. The ego provides the details. So the more you activate your ego to strengthen the group, the more details you're going to be able to invest correctly and know how to give each member the right strengthening and the right empowerment that they need. The workshop is over. What do you think of the article?
Can you pull it up again, please? Can we read it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 14, inversion. Just a second. The system converses with us through different mediums indirectly. Part of our work is to learn how to decipher the concepts related to us. One of the main filters to apply to the way we interpret the world around us is inversion. This means that we identify the phase, humanity, spiritual society, group, and individual, that relate the concept to us and invert accordingly. And here's a quote. Thus, if Israel are rewarded and take the law of development that their bad attributes must go through in order to invert them into good ones, they will bring it under their own government. In other words, they will set their minds and hearts to correct all the bad attributes in them and turn them into good ones by themselves. Then I will hasten it, meaning that they will be completely freed from the chains of time. And from now on, this end depends on their own will, meaning only by the greatness of the deed and the mindfulness. Thus they hasten the end. From the article Peace in the World by Balasulam. There is a common thought that if only we gave charity to each other, everything would be great, the world would reach peace and everyone would be happy. People call that altruism. However, this is the total opposite of what Kabbalah calls altruism. Altruism is independent on each other, where we empower and strengthen each other. The falsehood of normal charity is that you cause the other person to be dependent on you instead of enabling the person to stand independent. By empowering each other to be able to handle their everyday life, humanity, we can focus our mind and efforts on attaining spiritual degrees of perception. Here's a quote. Thus it is evident that his guidance over the reality that he has created is in the form of purposeful guidance, without taking into consideration the order of the phases of development, for they deceive us and prevent us from understanding their purpose, being always opposite to their final shape. It is about such matters that we say, there is none so wise as the experienced. Only one who is experienced has the opportunity to examine creation in all its phases of development, all the way through completion, and calm things down, so as not to fear those spoiled images that the creation undergoes in the phases of its development, but believe in its fine and pure end. From the article, The Essence of Religion and Its Purpose by Balasulam.
So we have two. Oh, is it done? Oh, no, sorry.
I'll just read the last paragraphs.
Yeah.
Just mute, because there's a background noise. One of the problems we face on our path is being able to see the development we go through as positive. We see various clashes of people and desires in reality, and our first response is wanting those clashes to stop. However, these tribulations are designed to bring a more powerful outcome of integrated views and desires. These are needed for a more developed society. Peace is not about reducing our power, but rather having a common goal to unite opposite perceptions. Only those with the low desire can love someone without a reason. It is impossible to love someone unconditionally. There is always a reason, either unconsciously or consciously. The only way for the love to be unconditional is for the reason to be unconditional, which is the Creator, and the goal of reaching absolute power together. It is the only permanent, eternal reason to have for love. Yes, Peter.
I was going to say two things that really jumped out at me was one, we have attributes and we have to correct those. That's a full-time job right there. And as these things come up, we'll turn them from the negative to the positive, let's say. And then we have also our friends who we have to show them how to be, in order for us to move forward and progress in the spirituality, we have to show them, help them to become independent and not dependent. And I think what they mean by dependent is more of a dependent in the corporeal world as opposed to the spiritual world. I mean, we all really are dependent on each other in the spiritual world because we're moving and advancing together. So we're pushing and pulling. But in this world, if you're with a group of people and you have like somebody who's really just needy, overly needy, that just pretty much puts a kink in the progress of everybody. And that person really needs to like, I'd say have a sense of maturity that would move them, to be more independent, and that they would be able to then to carry their weight in the group. Otherwise, they'd pull everyone down, and then otherwise you can't move. It locks everything down.
Yes, Moshe.
Well, those are the two things that jumped out at me.
Yes, Moshe.
Can you put the article up so I can read it real quick, so I can define my question?
Yeah. Where do you want to go?
Only those with low desire can love someone without a reason. What is that supposed to mean?
What that means is that only people with I'm hearing myself from reverb. What that means is that only people with low desire, they have a feeling that they can actually love someone without a reason. They think, oh, I'm just a good person because I'm a good person. And the idea is that the more you grow your desire, the more you figure out that you can't actually love someone without a reason. We see in the world, everyone says like saying, oh, we should just love each other just for the sake of loving each other. And the problem is that doesn't actually work. A low desire person can get away with it he can basically get away with it unconsciously. But the more you grow your desires, the more you have to take these concealments into your consciousness. And therefore, you basically see that you always have a reason why you're loving somebody, and that you can't just love somebody because it's meant.
But you can say that it's impossible to love someone unconditionally before the barrier, right? Because, after the barrier, when you have the quality of bestowal, then you can love somebody unconditionally, right?
Well, it's not unconditionally.
Well, once you become the creator, it's that quality of bestowal. That's that unconditional love, right?
Well, it's still to bring the thought of creation to fruition. It's still goal oriented.
Oh, so you're saying there's the condition there, right?
Exactly.
To bring
the goal of reaching absolute power together.
So the only way for the love to be unconditional is for the reason to be unconditional, which is the creator and the goal of reaching absolute power together. That sentence just doesn't vibe with me. I don't know why.
Well, because
what are you trying to say there?
Al-Islam talks about it in one of the articles, I can't remember which, but he basically says that, I think it's in the Freedom, that he talks there that there's no such thing actually as an unconditional love, and that you basically do have a dependency, and you basically make that dependency on the creator, since the creator is eternal, and then it makes that love eternal.
So the only condition that we should be having is that love towards somebody is for him to reveal the creator. That's the only condition that exists. And by that, it almost becomes unconditional. Can I say that? I don't know.
Yes. I was like this. The problem with loving somebody unconditionally is basically it's like talking about the essence, right? The reason we always talk only from the thought of creation and below is to say that there's a goal in mind. And it's not just to do something because why not? Like, unnecessary. That's one of the reasons why we don't talk about the essence, because talking about the essence is talking about it before the goal of creation. We don't. Everything we relate to is always goal-oriented. So the idea is that if I'm loving somebody unconditionally, it has to be goal-oriented because I'm going somewhere. There's a focus that the love is meant to do something. It's not just to have love and that's it. The love is to improve the state of a person. Or if it's to improve the state of a person, towards what state? And that's where you need a goal to, which is absolute power together, to help that person reach that state.
Yeah, but then it's never unconditional. It's always conditional. So I don't know how it can ever be unconditional.
So it says that Amnon but Tamar had a love which was dependent on something, and David and Jonathan had a love that wasn't dependent on anything. And the question is, well, how could it be not dependent on anything? It is, if it's not dependent on anything, it means it's dependent on everything. That is, when it's dependent on something, it's talking about an exclusion. It's dependent on this and not that. But when we're taking the whole system into account, then it's talking about that the love is not dependent on any specific thing. The love is dependent on the entire system. So you could say, when it's conditional, it's saying it's this and not that. And when it's unconditional, it's taking the whole system into account and not a specific detail into account.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Love is Marie asks, what are you defining as love? Love is integrating somebody within you. So when you love someone, it's basically taking that desire and saying it's part of me. Just like the opposite of love, which is hate, is when you feel that separation. When you feel there's me and there's that desire and there's no connection between them. So love is when you're saying this desire is part of me. That integration, that connection, that is love. Mary asks, if they have the same goal in mind, then you can love them for loving the Creator. Yes.
Well, I gotta say though, hate is not the opposite of love. It's not. So it's indifference. Hate is just an inversion of love. Like, it can be love at the same time. No?
Well, the idea is that indifference is just not... The opposite of love is hate, but there's still a connection. It's like when we say a backside and a face. So the backside is the opposite of a face, but they're still connected to one another, like cause and consequence. Indifference is when you're outside of cause and consequence. So we normally say indifference is double concealment. And then hate is single concealment. And then love is single revelation. Yes, Mary says indifference. Yes, fighting is connection. If you're fighting with someone, that means you actually want to connect with them. But you're doing it through the backside. You're doing it through doing it through negative emotion instead of positive emotion.
Also, I've read in many places that for love to be there, hate has to be present, and you cover the hate with the love. And I have to say that for the people that I really care about and love, I end up hating them at some point, and then I can cover it, and it's a tremendous feeling afterwards of even more love.
I agree, and that's what they say, that couples that fight are couples that can stay together, and those that don't fight, they just fall apart. There's nothing to keep them together. There's no strong bond, especially before the barrier. Hate is one of the most powerful emotions we can actually use. After the barrier becomes impotent, it's useless. But before the barrier, hate is a very good thing. It's like envy. All these things, it's basically the separation. When we reveal evil, this is all basically revealing hate, revealing that separation. So hate is separation and love is connection. But the idea is that you first need to see the separation in order to connect correctly. So if you're in a situation and you feel that you're one with that situation, you can't actually take care of that situation. So you first have to feel that separation, and then you can take care of it. And that's why we say that we first need to separate from our ego, and then we can actually use our ego. So as long as we feel that we are our ego, we weren't able to use it correctly. And it's when we feel that separation from our ego, then we're actually able to use it as a tool. Mark wants me to read that. Thus, the quote, thus, if Israel are rewarded and take the law of development that their bad attributes must go through in order to convert them into good ones, they will bring it under their own government. In other words, they will set their minds and hearts to correct all the bad attributes in them and turn them into good ones by themselves. Then I will hasten it, meaning they will be completely freed from the chains of time. And from now on, this end depends on their own will, meaning only by the greatness of the deed and the mindfulness. Thus, they hasten the end. Peace in the world by Balasalam.
Thank you, Zakai. I don't know why that paragraph just strikes me. It's like I want it on a plaque. I want to hang it on my wall. That's a very powerful paragraph there for me. Thank you for rereading that. For some reason, I can read this on my own, but when you read it, it means more to me. But that's a very, very powerful paragraph. Thank you.
Notice it doesn't say to get rid of the bad attributes, but to invert them. That is, many times we'll see, some of us will see ourselves as a monster, or we'll see, bad attributes in us. We'll be like, oh, we're lazy, or, all different other like qualities that we see as bad, or like, I'm nasty, or things like that. And the idea is that we don't actually, remove them, but rather we correct them. We change the use of them. We change the direction of them, the intention, how to use these qualities. And we don't actually remove them. Because by removing them, then we would be saying that the Creator made a mistake. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that our perception it's not mature. It's like we don't look at a baby and say, oh, there's a flaw in creation that it has to grow. Rather, we see this as, as a growth, as a maturity. So the same thing, we have to mature. As adults, we have to mature in our perception. And then we're able to use our qualities correctly.
Well, and that's one of the things I like about that paragraph. It's hopeful. It tells you how to work, what to do, and with desire and intent, you're able to do it. So that's just a beautiful paragraph.
I agree. Balasalam is awesome. Maria asks, what's the difference between inversion and balancing? Well, inversion is when you're converting something, right, from one state to the opposite of it, right? So, from egoism to altruism, for example, from bad to good. Balancing is normally used in the idea of the phases, that you're balancing how much time you're investing in each phase. So, for example, lack of balance is when you focus on your latest phase. Let's say, you suddenly found out about phase 2, and many people, they come to the spiritual society, and that's their focus, and then they forget about humanity, and their humanity aspect breaks down. They lose their job, or they divorce, or they get in all these things, and it's because they focused only on their spiritual society aspect, but forgot about the balance between the two. And the same things when you go to, to a group, you have to focus now, not only just on the group, you have to focus on the spiritual society and on humanity as well. The idea is in every state we add, it basically adds another thing we have to deal with, another balance point. So if I'm in phase 4, which is individual, I have to spend time also on humanity, also in the spiritual society, also in the group, and also on the individual friends that are helping me clean concepts. And that balance is knowing how much time and when to spend that time on each phase accordingly.
In reference to balance also, and this is kind of like balance in the group, but because the group is a reflection of our attributes, it also represents the balance in us. So thinking about the group, let's say there are issues, and it seems that some are really strong to the left and dominating, and there's a lot of conflict. So it's imbalance. There's imbalance there. So when we do our work with that in that phase, at least I sensed that wanting balance, desiring balance, but not necessarily knowing the way to create the balance, just wanting it and recognizing that it is out of balance. Adjustments are made, and your development is influenced, as well as the development of the others in the group. But it's all about the balance too. It's almost as though those two things kind of interplay.
Yeah, the balance and inversion actually work well together, because each phase is inverted of the phase before it and the phase after it. So phase 2 is in opposition to phase 1, and phase 2 is also in opposition to phase 3. And same with phase 3 is in opposition to phase 2 and to phase 4. The idea is that inversion, and it's one of the reasons why we talk about the phases a lot, is to, once you understand the phases and internalize them and understand that you can have a different relationship with each of those phases, that actually helps the balance itself. So, for example, part of the problem is if we think that the spiritual society will provide for our humanity, and they won't. And then, when we actually sort of, our humanity, we neglect it, and then we think the spiritual society will save us, let's say, financially. They can't. That's not what they're designed for. They're designed for that general emotional support. So by knowing the phases and knowing what each phase will give you and will provide for you, that in itself helps with the balance. So when you pass a barrier and then you're the creator and the creature simultaneously, you're able to handle that those opposites within you. That is, you're conscious of the creator within you and you're conscious of the creature within you. And even though they're totally opposite concepts, you're able to combine the two within you. And that's called peace. So when we have two desires which are fighting over each other, peace is not getting rid of one desire or the other. Peace is making peace between those two opposites and basically using a higher state to include them both and understand how they're perfectly, it's good to have both ends. It's like the right line opposes the left line and says to the left line, you're not annulling. And the left line looks at the right line and says, you have no desire. And they fight with each other. And peace is the middle line where it says, I can annul because I have a desire to actually reach something. I'm going to annul to the environment and use the environment. So on one hand, externally it looks like I'm annulling, but internally I'm actually using the environment to propel myself forward. And that becomes that middle line, where I use the environment for my advancement. This is a very basic concept that can really help us on like day to day, and it can really help us, especially with our thoughts. When we have a thought, one of the ideas to understand is that it's never actually your thought; it's the system's thought, and you have to do that sort of separation and understand it's not yours, and then you can actually do the inversion. So part of the problem why it's hard to do inversion on our own thoughts, because we actually think they're our own thoughts. And the idea is to have that disconnect and look outside of them and understand this is not my thought. The system sent me this thought. And then what am I meant to do with this thought? Am I meant to invert it or keep it the way it is? So for example, if someone has a thought of feeling inferior, so normally what we think is, oh, that's my thought and therefore I'm inferior. But if it's the system's thought, then the system might be making you scrutinize and discern why you are not inferior. So it asks you the question, oh, Zakai, are you inferior? And the answer to that is, no, I'm not inferior. Thanks for asking. So I could discern it. And it is about, a dichotomy. The whole thing of Kabbalah is dealing with these dichotomies, dealing with these opposites, and providing a framework to include them both. So it's not to say that one is right and the other is wrong, but rather to understand how they're both right, depending on the phases. And that's why, is created outside of you or inside of you? Well, it depends which phase you are. In phase 1 and 2, it's outside of you. And in phase 3 and 4, it's inside of you. In phase 1, God is faceless. In phase 2, God has a face as the teacher of the society. And in phase 3 and phase 4, it just becomes more of an internal concept than an external one. You actually are going to become the creator. And therefore you have to feel that it's internal so you can actually reach it. Well, if it's external, then you've always got the separation of, I can't be the teacher. The teacher's the teacher and I'm the student. In phase 3, there is no teacher and student. There's just friends. And then the creator is between us. That is, we find the connection between us to reveal the creator within us. I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.